Welcome to Season 2 of You and Me Kid, a podcast about starting and raising a family on your own, where I speak with other single moms, those still considering, and experts in relevant fields to give you a real sense of what the day-to-day experience of solo parenting looks and feels like. So wherever you are in the process, I hope this podcast provides some support, helpful info, and most importantly, humor. Thanks so much for listening. Now let's get to it. Today I'm talking to my friend Jenny, who is the single mom of a 7-month-old at the time of our recording. Jenny and I talk all things baby life, about the early days, about finding work-life balance, and also about that tough transition from maternity leave back to work. We also dig into the details of the au pair process and how she found an amazing au pair to move in with her and her daughter, Olivia. I hope you enjoy my chat with Jenny, and let's get to it. Okay, Jenny, I think it's helpful for us to just start with a little bit of background on how you and I got connected, because I think it's the cutest thing ever. So your brother and I went to high school together. We were buddies in high school. We hadn't chatted in 20 years. 7 months or so ago, 8 months or so, I got this sweet email from him that had said he had run into a friend on the street in Kansas City and told them that you were having a baby on your own, and they suggested that you listen to this podcast. So he listened to it, which I thought was so sweet. And I think, learned a little bit about topics that sometimes brothers can't talk to sisters about as it relates to IVF and fertility and birth and all of that, which I thought was just adorable. And then we got connected, and you had Olivia about a month after we met, which is crazy. So all the small world connections coming back together.
Yeah. It was really exciting when my brother reached out and said, "Hey, Sarah Hubbard, she lives in Boulder, and you should reach out." And I remember you vaguely from high school as being like a very cool, older. You were a senior when I was a freshman. But yeah, it's just been such a lovely, like you said, small world connection, but just like really helpful resource and support for me.
Yeah, I'm so glad, because I have mom brain and probably always will have forgotten in that first conversation that we had when this all started for you. So kind of take me back to like when you started thinking about becoming a single mom. What was the aha moment or the impetus for starting down the process?
Yeah, so I initially kind of mid-30s started really feeling the biological clock ticking, really impacting my mental health. And I initially decided to freeze my eggs just to do fertility preservation. And that, I think I started that process in like October of 2019. And then the pandemic hit, and I'm a healthcare worker, was really on the front lines, so really did not feel comfortable going out on dates, but then was also sort of feeling like I'm losing all these precious years of my fertility. So the egg freezing got delayed because of the pandemic. And in sort of the process of that, I started thinking more about this route. I knew some friends of friends that had done this, but really didn't know anybody well that had gone down this path. And I started listening to another podcast, which in addition to this one, I would highly recommend, The Single Greatest Choice. And I had initially sort of thought this route, this path is sort of a consolation prize. It's for people that just, haven't been able to meet anybody, and like probably they're losers, which I'm just like mortified to say that now because, listening to this podcast and now knowing a lot of women that have done this, I'm like, it is the exact opposite. This is like a group of successful, smart, badass women, and I feel lucky to like be a part of this club. But so the podcast really changed my tune on that. And that's when I really started seriously considering it. There were still some things I had to work through as far as thinking about, financially handling it and the stress of it. And will my family be okay with it? But so I ended up still wanting to freeze my eggs. I did that in March of 2021. I ended up switching clinics, which I'm really glad that I did. I froze my eggs, and then really just a few months later made the decision to make embryos out of those eggs, and then froze the embryos that I'd made. I knew I wanted to go this route, but I wasn't quite ready to like be pregnant, and I wanted more information about the quality of my eggs. So made embryos, I think July 2021, and then I did an embryo transfer in November of 2022. And now I have my daughter, who's amazing.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. As you know, this season I partnered up with California Cryobank, the #1 sperm bank in the US. California Cryobank ships to over 40 countries and has one of the largest and most diverse selection of donors out there. They are offering my listeners an amazing deal for season 2 that gives you free access to their level 2 subscription, which lets you check out baby and adult photos of the donors. To use this code, visit cryobank.com or click the link in the episode description and use my promo code YouMeKid, YOUMEKID, for a free level 2 subscription to their donor catalog. California Cryobank has helped tens of thousands create the family of their dreams, and hopefully you're next. Now, let's get back to it. So crazy. Did you use frozen sperm?
I did. Yes, I used frozen donor sperm from Seattle Sperm Bank.
Got it. Because this is the #1 question I get from everybody considering this process. How did you pick your donor?
It was really quite easy. Once I made the decision to do this, it was just like, all right, let's go. So the fertility clinic had recommended a couple of banks, and for some reason, I honestly don't remember why I settled on Seattle Sperm Bank. I ended up having, I think, 4 friends over. We called it a binders full of men party, sort of like the Mitt Romney scandal, binders full of women, which is also funny because like it's all online. There's not actually binders, but first narrowed it down based on my CMV status, which if you go down this route, you'll learn what that is. And then from there were really just a couple of things that I really cared about. I wanted them to seem like a good person, and I hopefully wanted them to be smart. Those were really the major things I cared about. But we did narrow it down based on superficial characteristics, just because you have to narrow things down. You can't just look at every single profile. So I wanted my baby to have a decent chance of looking like she was related to me. So we looked for Caucasian and similar hair color. And then from there, I think that actually narrowed it down to maybe only like 10. And then my friends had me listen to the audio clips blind, so I didn't know who they were associated with. And that was actually really what clinched it. Like that was so super helpful. There were just 2 that stood out by far, and I don't honestly even remember like what it was. You know, it was maybe sort of how they sounded, but also just the way they answered questions. And so I had my top 2, and the one I ended up picking, he had really cute baby photos and sort of, met he seemed smart. He was a healthcare provider, so I knew he was smart. And he also wrote that he knew many friends and family that had struggled with fertility. And so he felt like if he could help somebody in that realm, he wanted to do that. So it wasn't just like a college kid donating to make money. So anyways, I remember though, it was like a Sunday night, and we all felt really good about the decision. And I woke up the next morning and like he only had a few vials of sperm left. So I had to really act fast. But yeah, I mean, I felt good about the decision the whole time. Like when I went to make embryos, I like revisited it and felt good about it. Well, I guess that was when I picked him. But then when I went to do the embryo transfer, like revisited it and still felt good about it. And, I mean, very rarely I'm so grateful to him as a donor, but I don't necessarily like think about him that much. It sort of has become irrelevant because she's my daughter.
Yeah, I had such a similar experience. And I think as my daughter's getting older too, I know that that's going to come back. The relevance of that and who this person is and all of that will come back as she gets older. And I'll kind of cross that bridge when we get there. But I'm similar to you in that doesn't do me any good at this point to worry about that or start answering questions that are going to come up in the future when the world is going to look very different for us, right? And our community and who is in her life at that point. And so I'm kind of choosing to put that on the someday worry
Yeah.
about it list and not today.
Yeah. I read her books about how she came to be more or less, but we don't really talk about the donor per se.
Yeah. I'm really curious to kind of ask you how you're making it work day to day. And I've gotten a lot of emails from folks after the first season of the podcast, just wanting to know more detail about how people are doing work and momming. And so talk me through a little bit about kind of your maternity leave and your schedule. And obviously then I want to chat a little bit about the au pair because that is just such an amazing option for folks too. But talk to me about work just for first.
Yeah. So I took 13-ish weeks off initially. I really loved maternity leave. I know that's not the case for everybody, but especially towards the end, she was sleeping pretty well. And, it is hard. I won't lie, but I actually feel like it's not as hard as I thought it would be. I thought maybe going in, there were times I was going to really wish that I had a partner or a second person. And quite frankly, I have never wished that I had a partner in this. There are times I'm like, I wish my mom was here, but never that I had a partner. So yeah, I went back to work after about 13 weeks. And to be honest, that was the most challenging time to be away from her, but then also to come home and have to manage, making dinner and just, all of the washing the pump parts and getting bottles ready for the next day and stuff like that. And I feel like I'm still kind of trying to figure out the best way to manage that. One thing I did do that I think was helpful is when I felt well towards the end of my pregnancy, I made a bunch of meals that I froze. I like to cook. And so then when people after the baby came would bring meals over, I would eat those or freeze some of them. So I just had a huge stock of food saved up. And so when I went back to work, instead of having to worry about doing a lot of cooking, I was able to just pull things out of the freezer, and that made a huge difference. Occasionally I'll use weekends and stuff like that to prep for meals and things like that.
I joke
But
sometimes that my motherhood is sponsored by Trader Joe's because it's just like without a quick, like microwavable, whether it's from the freezer and I prepped it or something that just can easily quickly come out. Ellie does not really give me any time to cook. When she's hungry, and it needs to be a couple minutes later that she's eating. And so I also food prepped while I was pregnant, and it was hugely helpful in those early days. And it was just super simple stuff. I wasn't by any means making anything gourmet, but now it has become a really important part of our day to day of just me making sure there are things in the freezer or the fridge that are ready to go because yeah, there's no time.
yeah, and I've actually pretty recently come to the realization I've always been a person to sort of cook everything from scratch. Like I don't eat a lot of things, pre-prepared that are frozen, but I just had to give up on that. I'm like, there are really good things at Trader Joe's that I can just pull out and, it's ready in 10 minutes. So there are, you do kind of have to make some compromises in terms of things like that. And I'm actually on maternity leave again. I've sort of fell into this little loophole, the state of Colorado, where I was able to take another 12 weeks off. And so now that my daughter is eating solids, which is also a lot of work and like mental load, I'm trying to do a lot of, prepping of things and then freezing stuff so that then when I go back to work again, similar for my meals, like I can just pull stuff out of the freezer for her. And again, I started out making everything from scratch and now I've had to decide that's just really not feasible for my life. So, got some pouches and purees and stuff like that and are mixing those in. So, yeah, it is important, I think, to figure out ways to simplify things at least a little bit. I mean, I get packages from Amazon like every single day.
Yeah.
um, so
The one I was joking with a friend this weekend that the two times I wish I had a partner were one, I want someone to break down my Amazon boxes in the garage and take them to the recycling bin. I hate it. And it's like this growing mountain in the garage. And then the other time that it feels difficult is like packing and unpacking the car because I now have a
mm,
very mobile little human. And so those moments where I'm like getting ready to go on a little trip or even just going away for the night or something, I just want someone else to either be with her or packing the car because both is hard. But those are really the only two times in 19 months that I have just wanted another set of hands. So I'm totally with you there. And my my food prep aha moment came, of course, from, another mom. They're all knowing and all wise sometimes. And I had kind of a moment where I was giving myself a hard time about not making really good, healthy, nutritious meals for Ellie. I didn't feel like she was eating really good food as she was just getting into solids. And I was feeling bad about it. And one of my friends just said, Sarah, go to Trader Joe's. I'm going to send you a list of all the things my kids love. Just walk through there, fill a cart with frozen food, and stop giving yourself a hard time about it. And it just was this moment where I was like, oh my God, I can let myself off the hook for this. And then I found all these things that she loves and I add a bunch of vegetables to everything. Like I make it our own and I make it in a way that doesn't make me feel bad about the nutritional value. But at the end of the day, My kid can take down a sweet potato and an avocado all day long. And if I try to give her anything, I tried to give her pizza and wings on Super Bowl Sunday because I thought it would be funny. She wasn't into it, which kind of made me laugh. But yeah, I'm with you. You have those moments where you dig your heels in over something and then you just realize it's okay to
Yeah.
let it go.
And the mom guilt is real. And I have to remind myself frequently that even if I don't feel like I'm doing 110% all the time, like I'm still doing the best I can. And she's a well-loved child. And, I'm as present as I can be. And so I think trying to let go of the mom guilt, it's easier said than done, but I think important.
Yeah. Okay. Talk to me about the decision to get an au pair and that process because I think it seems to be, and maybe I'm wrong, but the most affordable option for folks looking for in-home support. So how did that all come about? What's the process like and how's it going?
Sure. Yeah. So I think I originally started thinking about an au pair because, as I mentioned previously, I work in healthcare and I have to work some weekends. I have to work some holidays. I don't just work sort of a typical 9 to 5 schedule. And so, having an au pair, they can work. Like she worked for me the day after Thanksgiving and she's worked on some weekends for me. So that was kind of the first time I thought about it. I also like had some friends that were au pairs. And so I knew like, okay, like these are generally people that really like kids. And one of the big sort of differences between them and a nanny is that it's truly meant to be like a cultural exchange. They're coming here to experience America, work on their English, and that was important for my daughter too. I speak Spanish and I would like for my daughter to be bilingual. And so I just liked that idea too of sort of the cultural exchange aspect of it. So, um, in terms of the process, picked an agency. I end up getting a little bit of a discount through work. It's not huge, but a little bit. And so I just kind of initially started on their website. And honestly, it's a little bit like online dating, which feels a little bit weird, but um,
Just like sperm.
they yeah, they post some pictures and videos and then, a little bit about themselves, why they want to be an au pair. They have references and sort of like a work history as far as their childcare experience, and you can filter. So I filtered based on, I wanted someone who was Spanish speaking, and then they have ones that are what's considered infant qualified, which is what I needed. So they have experience with babies, as young as 3 months. I filter down, and then you just go through and you start looking at their profiles basically, and then you sort of need to mutually match again, just like online dating,
Yeah.
and then you can start communicating. And so for me, it was the very first person that I reached out to or sort of matched with. I was just really impressed with her childcare experience, and she just seemed like a sweet person. And so we matched. We sent a couple of emails. And then we did like an interview. It's really just more of like a casual conversation for like 30 minutes. And I ended up having interviews with 3 people, but she was the first person I talked to. And my friend helped me actually, who's a teacher, and that was really helpful just to get her insight. But we felt like she was by far the best candidate. Like she just had a lot of experience watching her little nieces, even when they were babies. And she just had a really sweet way about her. And we had a lot in common as far as liking sports and liking outdoors things. And, we laughed together easily in this interview. And so I think I started that process in June. My daughter was born in July, and then she ended up coming in October. So they're really not allowed to watch a baby on their own until they're 3 months old. So she started right about 3 months, and that's when I went back to work. But it's been amazing. And I know not everybody has had really great experiences with au pairs, but it truly has been great. I mean, there was like a transition period when she first arrived, lots of culture shock and me getting used to having someone else living in my house. But she's so good with my daughter and she's very helpful around the house. I mean, truly, like I have an extra set of hands. I try to be really conscious about, there are stipulations as far as how much they can work. They can only work 45 hours a week and 10 hours a day, but that's still like a lot. And there's so much flexibility in it. So even like being on maternity leave again, like I'm still having her help me out for several hours a day so that I can kind of focus on taking care of myself. Yeah, it's really been great. The only thing as far as them staying in your house, they have to have a private bedroom. They don't have to have their own bathroom. So I have a small house. My house is like 1,300 square feet. So I was really worried about like, how is it going to be having someone else in my house? But it's really not been a big deal at all. Granted, she spends quite a bit of time in her room, but I think the benefits totally outweigh, the cons of like sharing a space just because of the extra help that I get.
Yeah, because I have no idea kind of the details of au pair, the au pair system. Is there a range of cost? What is it typically kind of if people were
So
budgeting around it?
you have to pay them a minimum. I think it's like $195 a week, but most people round that up to 200. So it's 800 bucks a month for in-home childcare,
That's
live-in
incredible.
childcare. You do also have to pay $500 towards some type of class that they take, and then usually you provide them with some type of transportation. Some people will give their au pairs a car, in which case you have to think about like car insurance and all of that. Because my daughter is a baby, she doesn't need to go anywhere. So I just have given my au pair access to like my Uber account. So there are some added expenses. I pay for a phone bill just so that, I can reach her in an emergency and whatnot. But truly, it's at least from other things I've looked at, like daycare in the area and of course a nanny and things like that, it is far, far cheaper than any other option.
And is it a year? Is that kind of the commitment you guys make?
Yeah, so they sign up for a year and then they can extend for an extra year either with you, with, your family, or, they can choose a different family. And then I know people, I had somebody sort of guiding me in this process who'd had au pairs for years and years and years. So like, occasionally they would extend to 2 years, but then when that person was up, they would get another au pair. So they just had au pair after au pair because they thought it was
Loved
such a
it.
good arrangement.
Yeah. What are you thinking in terms of just kind of because your year will be up, I guess October, you have another 8 months.
Yeah, yeah. My plan as of right now is to put her in daycare in October, which the sticker shock of that price is gonna be a lot. I think that first year I felt like I really want her, just to have that one-on-one attention and, playing with other kids isn't like all that important. And I thought I'll be able to like save up some PTO because that was the other thing too. Like, go back to work and the kids in daycare and they're getting sick all the time. I had no PTO. I work in healthcare, so it's not like I can work from home if she's sick and stuff like that. So, my thought as of now is to put her in daycare in October. I assume my au pair is going to go back home to Panama, but we have not really broached that. I mean, I think I would be open to extending, but I also have a spot in a daycare that does Spanish immersion. And, I like the thought of her starting to socialize at some point. But yeah, I haven't made the final decision on that yet.
Gotcha. Well, let me shift a little bit just to kind of you and your experience. I'm interested just to kind of hear from you what you expected out of, the first 7 months of motherhood, what you were told, what you thought would happen, what you thought you would feel like, and what the reality has been.
Yeah, I think my mom was asking me this recently too, like what's been surprising or different? And I think I thought it was going to be harder than it is. I think I was picturing most nights being up, all night long or like every couple of hours and, just frequently having a screaming child that I can't get to calm down. And I'm sure there are mothers out there that have that experience, but and perhaps I've just been lucky with my child. But, the first few weeks were really tough as far as sleep and just figuring things out. And she had some medical stuff that we had to deal with. But she now sleeps through the night, which again, I'm very lucky. And she's a chill baby. And so there just really aren't, that many times when I can't calm her down or get her to go back to sleep. Though I will say we were in the mountains this weekend and she did not sleep well. And that was hard. Like once you get used to something and then it changes, it's like, no, I can't deal with this. But you deal with it. You figure it out. You learn to live on less sleep.
Altitude. I have some thoughts around altitude
Yeah,
and babies for another
yeah.
day, but
Okay.
I'm going through that also at 19 months. It's
Yeah.
a,
And
yeah,
that's the thing. There's always something. I feel like somebody said, or maybe multiple people, and I need to do a better job of reminding myself of this, but like everything is a phase. And if it's a rough phase, it will get better. It's not going to last forever. And then if it's a good phase, which I actually feel like we're in a really good phase right now. Like it's so fun. She's doing all these new things. Her development is just, skyrocketing, and she's talking and laughing and eating solids, which has been really fun. And, so I'm trying to just like really soak that up and be present, but just, reminding myself that everything is a phase.
And
So
what are
yeah, I
you
mean, I think that's just the biggest thing is that it really hasn't been as hard, just generally like stressful wise or, financially, like a lot of those things. Same, I wasn't sure how my family would feel about it. And like my family is obsessed with this baby. So all those things that I was worried about have really not come to fruition.
Yeah. Have you had to field any interesting questions or judgment or kind of interesting input from friends or the outside world around being a single mom?
To be honest, I really haven't, or it's been very minimal. I think I was very sort of careful about who I talked to about this going into it. But I did also tell a lot of people, like most of my friends knew, and, my close family knew, and were generally super supportive. I mean, I had so many friends be like, well, you're basically like doing it on your own anyways. So I think this is great. Or friends that were like, yeah, I can actually see why this would be so much easier to do this on your own,
Yeah. Yeah.
which
That's the
was
number
very
one comment I get
validating.
is like, huh, I could just do what I want when I
Yeah.
want and make decisions about these kids on my own. Like, that sounds nice.
Yeah. I did, when she was born, I did post on social media. I haven't been a huge poster on social media, but when she was born, I did. And I don't know, there was one guy that was like, wow, that's so brave. And then somebody else that was like, wow, that must be so hard. And I was like, yeah, probably to you, it sounds like that. But other than that, like I told people at work pretty early on, and people were so super supportive. And in fact, because I mentioned, I'm doing this on my own as a single mother by choice with help from a fertility clinic, and multiple people reached out, like, thank you for sharing that. Like, we had fertility struggles, and, it's a very lonely process, and, just thank you for your vulnerability. So that was really empowering as well. But yeah, I've been super lucky in that I really haven't had many negative comments. I have found, I'm not proud of this, but there have been times when like patients at work will ask me, oh, what does your husband do? And I just find it easier to lie. I'll just say he's an attorney as opposed to going into it. I'm like, I don't know you. I don't need your judgment. Like, this is just a professional relationship. But
You do
otherwise,
get to
I'm,
choose when you want to go down the
yeah,
explanation path with strangers or you just, yeah.
yeah. But otherwise, I am proud of what I've done, and I have no issue, talking about it. And like I said, I've also been lucky in that I haven't got a lot of negativity towards it.
Yeah. What about in terms of time for yourself? How are you spending that free time when you have it? How are you getting back to feeling like yourself, seeing friends, doing the things that kind of fill your cup?
Yeah, I'm still figuring that out. I definitely don't have that totally figured out. It's a work in progress. One of the things I discovered early on, I love to read, love, love, love to read. And I sort of thought, based on my friend's experience, like, oh, I probably won't read a book until she's like 2 years old. But with breastfeeding, I was spending so much time, sort of just sitting there, for lack of a better word, I guess.
Yeah.
And I was just scrolling my phone. I was just on social media, and I was like, I am rotting my brain. So I had a Kindle that I hadn't really been using, but I was like, if I can scroll on my phone, I can scroll on a Kindle. And so I started reading again, and that was really amazing to like bring that back into my life from pretty early, like just a few weeks old. And granted, she was born in the summer, so the weather was pretty nice, but even, through most of the year, I try every day to take her on a walk, whether it's when I get home from work and I put my headphones in and I listen to a podcast. And that's, even though she's with me, I still sort of feel like that's my time to kind of recharge. And she's sleeping through the night, and she goes to bed at like 6:30 or 7. And so I have a couple of hours really to myself. And there are times when it's tempting to be like, okay, I need to get like X, Y, and Z done. But I try at least a couple times a week. No, I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to read, or I'm going to watch a show, or I'm going to, do something that kind of helps fill up my cup. And then I'm also super lucky in that I have a really great network of friends and support system here where I live, and many of them have had babies within the last year. And so that's been really great to, not feel like I'm sort of the last one of the bunch and everyone has sort of, moved on and I've got my baby. But, I meet friends at the park to go for walks or, just go hang out at someone's house. And so that's been really important to me. I will say I don't have a super big like single mother by choice community, which I think is something that is important and I want to work on that. But I also just have a lot of mom friends that I've been able to stay in touch with. And of course, even if we're not seeing each other regularly, we're constantly texting about, this and that. And what do you think about this? And oh, get ready for this. Like this is, coming soon. And so that's just been really, really helpful.
God, it's so funny to hear you talk about this because I went through a really similar stage, Jenny, where I realized I was just scrolling and it wasn't doing anything for me and kind of made me feel like I was wasting time that was really precious. And in the past 6 months, I would say I've really have like focused in on the fact that I don't have a lot of time and I should be using it wisely. And I don't necessarily mean it always has to be productive, but trying to be more thoughtful about that time. And I have also made the shift from TV or social media to reading because it feels like just a different type of time. It feels calmer to me. I pick the books I'm reading kind of specifically around how I'm feeling, how much energy I have, and it has made a huge difference. This scrolling as a mom was something I definitely felt early on. And now my daughters are old enough to see me with my phone and really has strong opinions about that, which I find hilarious and sometimes frustrating because I do have to work. But she'll tell me when I'm not being present or I'm trying to do that thing where I say, "Oh, that's such a great tower, honey," but I'm looking at my phone. She
Yeah.
knows now, right? And they hold you accountable. But yeah, the reading shift for me was really big, as is the going outside thing. On those days where it feels like, especially in winter, you just want to hole up and be cozy and you're exhausted. Going outside changes the game for me and definitely for kiddos, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And, I'll say too, like, it's important to me that she be pretty okay with traveling. So, like,
Yeah.
we flew for the first time when she was 5.5 weeks old. And I know a lot of people thought we were crazy, but it was fine. It was totally fine. And she's now flown, I don't know, 4 times. We've got a couple more flights coming up. I've started taking her to the mountains because that's important to me. So, yes, some of those things can be challenging, but if it's important to you, it's worth sort of starting from an early age.
Yeah. And it's harder, but staying inside and doing the same kind of thing over and over and over again is harder for me than the challenge of taking her somewhere. I've realized it's harder on my mental health,
Totally.
because the repetition of this life sometimes does get to me a little bit. It can feel like Groundhog Day unless you do stuff like that. You get outside, you try a new playground, you go somewhere over the weekends, you go meet somebody for lunch and bring the kid with you. And yes, it's harder and sometimes it doesn't work out the way you needed it to, but the monotony for me is worse. So that balance has become key to my sanity.
Yeah, 100%.
Have you felt any like loneliness or isolation with this yet? It sounds like you have a lot of mom friends who have babies at similar ages, which is huge. But has there been any feeling of, wanting more people around or more activity in the house?
Say really no. I think I sort of alluded to this early on, but I really struggled with my mental health and sort of this idea of loneliness and really wanting a partner like several years ago. And I feel like I worked really hard through various channels kind of on that and on myself. And so I am to a point where I really like doing things on my own. I'm like, if it's the choice between going snowboarding on my own or not going, like I'm definitely going snowboarding on my own or like hiking on
Yeah.
my own or, all these things. I'm not going to not do these things because I don't have somebody to do them with, just like having a baby. So, yeah, I don't think that that has really been something I've thought about at all. And I do have a really great support system and friends that I meet up with and whatnot. So yeah, I'm fortunate in that. But again, I did sort of have to put some time in on that prior to coming to this place.
Yeah. I wonder if that is also one of the benefits of potentially having an au pair just having another person in the house. I definitely have times where I feel like it's really quiet in my house and I turn the TV on or the news on just to have kind of another voice because Ellie can't talk. Well, she does talk back to me, but not in the way that I need sometimes, of just feeling like there's like activity and something going on because it does sometimes for me get a little bit quiet and the scheduling to see people. I just have to put effort into that structure to know that I have time with other people and that kind of social outlet for myself is taking more effort than I anticipated it would, but it's worth it when I do it because if I go
Yeah,
too many
I
days,
feel like we're getting into a time, it used to just be so easy to just anytime really, take her out and do whatever. But I feel like she's now has a more consistent bedtime that's earlier. And so it's much harder to meet people. So I was just trying to schedule with a couple friends and it was like, well, I'm really sorry. I hate to be this person, but like, would you all be willing to come over here? Or, we
yeah.
could do like a late happy hour. I know you both work. Like it just, I can see how that is going to become more challenging. And I hate being the person that sort of has to be accommodated, but thankfully, I think my friends also get it.
Yeah. And for so long, I think even prior to, even when people just had partners and not kids, but then as I think my community at least started having kids, I didn't think twice about it. If they said, hey, can you meet at this hour? Or I've got this window open, because you love those people and you want to see them. And so you accommodate them. And now's the time kind of for that table to shift a little, right? And people to be able to come back. In terms of the partnership, you said that, you haven't had a lot of times in the past 7 months where you have thought about having a partner or wished you had a partner. Are you still excited about the idea of a partner? Have you thought about dating? Is that even something you've broached yet in this stage of your motherhood? How's that all feeling?
To be honest, it's really not something I've thought about. I don't rule out the possibility in the future, but I mean, I just have so much on my plate right now. I also hated dating. I did it, sort of as a means to an end, but I hated it. And so, things are so good in my life right now. I'm like, why would I welcome in something that I hate so much and that was not successful? So, yeah, I think that's perhaps down the line, but not something that I really put any thought into right now.
Yeah, that's nice surprising. All right, I'm asking everybody this season what you feel like your single mom superpower is. Is there a part of your personality or experience that you didn't really realize would kind of come to life as a mom or a way that you're handling all of this that feels kind of surprising to you and maybe you're proud of or surprised by? It's really interesting, I think, prior to becoming a parent, what you think it's going to be like and the parts of your personality that you think are going to be valuable, right? In that, especially for those of us, I think you had spent a lot of time with kids prior to having your own baby and just kind of thinking you understand that experience. And I have felt both that I was right in the parts of myself that would be helpful in having a baby, but then there are some very surprising elements of my personality that have been the most helpful and I wouldn't have thought about.
Yeah, like what have other people said? I'm curious if maybe that'll like spark my thoughts.
Yeah, I think there's been totally. I think there's been discussion around like mine personally was like I'm just not worried about any of the stuff I thought that I would be worried about or
Mm.
people told me I would be worried about. Getting better as Ellie gets older about not stressing about when those phases come up, right? Because every few months we have a bad sleep phase and then we get into a good phase and like being okay with that cyclical part or in the beginning stressing about, oh, I'm feeding her solid foods. I should be doing this or I should try this. Maybe I just haven't found the thing yet that she loves, etc. But the older she gets, just kind of not worrying about it and knowing my child is not going to go to college with a pacifier. She's not going to go to college pooping her pants. Like it's all, she's going to figure it out. Right. And so me stressing about it or stress purchasing things on Amazon to solve it. Um,
I think I have an answer.
okay.
I've kind of alluded to this, but I think I did really think that I was going to totally lose myself and like all the things that I really enjoy that I wasn't going to be able to do them, but I actually feel like I've been able to still do the things that I love and that make me feel like me while still incorporating my daughter into that. So, I do love to cook. And so I have her in the kitchen with me, even though, she's like in her little seat or whatever. It's not like helping me, but, I try to incorporate her into that and like talk to her about what I'm doing. And here's this spice that smells like this. And so I think still finding ways to be myself and do the things that I love, knowing that that is going to make me a better mother in the long run.
Yeah. It is funny, right? That whether it's movies or TV or other people telling you this, I had this vision in my head that I would be like hair all over the place, hadn't showered in a week, hadn't slept in a month, like a shell of a human, like zombieing around.
Yeah,
Just like covered in breast milk. Like that's just, I think, the vision that you have of what this is going to be like. And don't get me wrong, I've had those days 100%. I've had those days like recently.
yeah,
But
same.
the majority of the days, I do feel like myself. I feel like I have time to shower and brush my hair and throw on some mascara and a cute outfit if I want to. But cute for me now is very different than cute pre-baby. It's my cute yoga pants and my cute hoodie, and my tennies.
Thankfully, we live in Colorado.
Exactly, exactly. In LA, I would have been shunned by
Yeah,
society by now, but I feel the same. I feel like myself. I'm able to do the things that make me happy. It takes a little more effort
yeah,
to meet those people or get exercise or take Ellie out to do a hike or something. It takes effort, but I have felt like I'm able to do those things. And then you're kind of just rounding the corner of this too, which is what I've found the most helpful in this experience is instead of being stressed all the time by it, I have found that Ellie makes me slow down because she needs me to be present. She needs me to not be on the phone. She needs me to go in the backyard and sit there for 45 minutes and think the one red leaf is the coolest thing that has ever happened in the world. And that's the activity. It's not, we're going to the park and we got to get to the park and do the thing. The activity is like something very, 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 very simple. And it's taken me a little bit to shift into that lower gear. But I love it when I can do it and I'm in that moment. And that is filling my cup instead of constantly thinking 10 steps down the line of, okay, she's going to nap in 45 minutes and I got to run down the clock. And then when she naps, I'm going to get this done. Like we're in the backyard and we're talking about leaves. Like that's it.
yeah. I
And I
definitely
love
I
that.
need to continue working on being a little bit more present and not just focusing on the tasks that need to be done. So I'm trying to do better, but I know I need to
It's
need
a
to continue to
constant
work on that.
battle. It's all a constant battle. Well, I'm just so thrilled that you've had such a good experience with all of this, and I'm not surprised, and I wish I could see you more, even though you're only 45 minutes away. I wish we could get the girls together, but thank you so much for doing this. All right, buddy. Well, you have a great day. Give
Yeah, same
Olivia
to
a
you.
snuggle for me, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. For more information about the podcast or me, go to youandmekidpod.com. See you soon.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you or your company are looking to jump into the podcast world, now is the time. The Plug Agency is here to connect you to the full power of podcasting. You just record and leave the rest to us. The people are listening and want to hear from you. Theplug-agency.com. That's theplug-agency.com. Click the link in the episode description for an exclusive offer.